All right, y'all. Welcome to the Jackass Podcast. This is Coach Lindsay, um, the Jackass. Happy New Year. This is the first one of the new year. I've had 1 week back at school. So let's talk about some of the stuff that's happened. It's been a couple weeks since we got to do this. So hope y'all had a good break. I've had a good break. But let's talk about some of the things going on. We'll talk about the thing in Venezuela. We'll, of course, talk about education, talk about coaching, fantasy football, WWE, and the way some of that's handled. I'm doing this on Sunday after the SmackDown in Berlin, so I'll get to watch. I'll watch the one. Forget where they're doing the Raw, but SmackDown in Berlin, seeing them call up some young talent from NXT already. It's been really cool to see. And we'll talk about basketball. Just got done watching my young Spurs team lose a close game. Again, like I said, we'll talk some fantasy football because for some reason, before the season even ended, a group of people that I'd done fantasy football this year decided, hey, we want to start a dynasty draft already. Like, we hadn't even got done with the season and they want to start a dynasty draft. We'll talk about that and an idea I have. And maybe some of the trailers or some of the stuff I've seen that I'm looking forward to. All right. So, first off, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the action in Venezuela. Because as far as I understand it, it was a legal action. It was a police action. It wasn't necessarily a military action. And we have to remember that we train some of our police force to act like military personnel and can't really be mad that they're acting like military personnel when that's how we have trained them in the past. So here's what I don't get about the complaint. People are saying Maduro was the president, and he wasn't. He wasn't the president-elect. He had lost the election a year and a half ago, and just had never given up the seat. He had crimes because he was in charge of cartel and Venezuela drugs. And people are very, very, I'm going to say this. I don't think it's all Democrats. It's very, very far left Democrats are bitching about it. Like we did something wrong as a country. Let's look back because Trump brought Maduro back to the U.S. to actually stand trial in court. And then Barack Obama had a SEAL team go after Osama bin Laden and just straight kill him. And he wasn't the first person, but that was the president that was under. And we're measuring this in such different ways than we did. I guess it's almost 15 years ago now. But yeah, I don't get it. If you can't see or do stuff and not have the I don't know what I would call it, and not have the America first mindset, then there's something wrong with you. There's a lot of countries who would who you go down, forget party lines, forget this, forget that. But you don't get to have the freedoms we have. And we can have the nut jobs on the left and on the right. Because there are nut jobs on the right too. Full-blooded, I'm going to be a MAGA supporter. I think that's the vocal minority on both sides. So I have a group of friends who are, I don't know, we got a lot of stuff with us, but man, but we have a vast, I wouldn't say a vast, like stretch of how we view stuff politically. I'm more middle of the road. There's stuff I didn't like that Republicans did. There's stuff that I didn't like that Democrats did. There's stuff I've liked from both parties at some point in time. But I think we need to get back to people being middle of the road so we can work through this and actually make this a great country. And if you want to go on the whole like military thought process of the Venezuela thing, that they want to weaken China's oil supply any way they can, that's not a dumb move. Like, it's actually a very smart move on America's part. And we've had to be very strategic. There's really two world powers, and even if America is kind of, I don't know, grasping at the last straw of the 100 years, um, we're still somebody the world counts on. So we have to figure out what America do we want. Because at the end of the day, the America I want is a well-educated society that will work together to improve itself when it needs to be. And I think we have gotten away from that because I think there's a disconnect from the people in charge to the people this actually affects. I think the disconnect also comes in that the people in charge don't give a shit because we don't pay attention to some of the people who actually make these moves until they do something really big and stupid. And then we recognize that name. Like, I couldn't tell you who my representative for the House of Representatives is in Congress from San Antonio. I couldn't. I could go look it up. I could find it out, but I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you who my Texas representative is for the House or the Texas Senate. So I think we have to become more educated on it. I think a lot of times that's where politicians get hidden and power gets driven to it. I think we always focus on the headpiece of something, and the president sees the headpiece. Um, I think the fact that the president has term limits and Congress doesn't means that we're not always going to be moving forward. So, and I say all this because this is what causes all of this stuff with like Maduro and this disconnect. Very, I don't want to say liberal, of the maniac left side of the Democrats, um, causing an uproar because they don't see what's actually going on. They're just like, oh, well, Trump did something. And that's all they're focused on. Y'all need to pull your head out of your asses. He's late 70s, going to be in his 80s by the time he's out. And we need to find new blood to lead this country. I'm 40 and there's names I've been hearing over half my life that are still in power. But the world has changed so much in that time that that they don't have a clue of how it's changed. how it's changed at the bottom. So I'm hoping that one day, and if we wait for the federal government to change stuff, or you wait for your state government to change stuff, it's usually too late for it to actually mean anything. It's become a money thing. It's become a thing that now it's just lip service, and it's not really going to change. It's just going to make something more difficult. And speaking of making things a little bit more difficult, I heard something. It was a clip of a TED Talks, kind of saying that we need to change the way education is. I think we need to change the perception of it and get the top down to fund it so we can do what we as teachers would like to do, but we have standards that we have to go by. I don't think you get out of would I like more kinesthetic learning? Yeah, because this group of kids is kinesthetically going to learn. Would I like curriculum actually teaching how to use AI properly? Yes, and when to use it, but still teach creativity because it takes the work out of it. Yes, I think we need that. I think we need to have a basic understanding of the foundations of whatever we're teaching before we get to using AI and using the stuff that makes our lessons easier or our life easier. I think you have to go through a grind. I think in some ways, because parents have helped their children avoid a grind, and we haven't. We've talked about grit in education. I heard it, I don't know, in the past few years, the district I work for. We want more grit, especially after COVID. We want to find that grit. Well, grit's in teaching people that failure is all right. Grit's getting through that failure. Grit is that moment that you had to just grind out to get what you wanted, and you realize you had grit after. It's not after one time of doing it, it's after time after time after time. And you get that shell of, okay, I'm gonna fail. I might fail at this the first few times, but as long as I learn something each time, even if my failure is different, that I get back up and I keep going and I keep striving to do this, then my grit shows. Like, that's what I want. That's what I would love. But I don't know how we go through and justify that sometimes. Like, and how do you teach that? Because as a teacher in middle school, it's hard for me to start teaching grit because it's also a mindset. And there are a lot of kids in that mindset of, well, if it's hard, I'm just going to give up. I'm not going to grind through the work. But everyone that I put on a pedestal that I love, whether it's LeBron, whether it's any NFL player, whether it's any musician, whether it's anybody famous, y'all don't see the work that made the magic. And we forget that there's a lot of work to get to those levels. And education's supposed to be a foundation of that work, of that grit. Because I don't care what job you have, there's going to be moments where you come across stuff and you don't know what you're doing. There are going to be moments where you have to learn, and maybe it's not your strong suit. Maybe it's not your forte in that. Oh man, that comes easy to me. Speaking in front of people when I was a kid was the hardest thing in the world. Like I would be red faced, my ears would be bright red, like a big red, and they would be hot. And I can remember being in front of classes, and that was the feeling. But now I can get up in front of 30, 60, or however many people are in front of me, and I'm more comfortable doing it. I had to grind to get there. I had to grind to realize that my voice is through, can be through very loud and soft explanations, but I don't need to dazzle the sugar in it and the pretty stuff in it. I need to be just straightforward, be honest and blunt, and that's my voice. I can be the sandpaper in a group. I can be the guy who will just rub you the wrong way, and I'm not gonna care if you like me or not. But because I think that's what I needed to say, I'm gonna say it. And in some ways, it helps my career in teaching because I'm giving these kids this very honest opinion. And even if I rub them the wrong way at first, it's always amusing to me that I'm always the harder kid's favorite teacher in the end, or one of their favorite teachers, because they know that they're gonna get honesty from me. And it's an expectation that they can have that I will be very honest. And very seldom am I going to sugarcoat it, or I'm going to care about the wording that I use. But I'm going to be honest with you. And I think we need to have an honest conversation in education to understand the curriculum we think we need. Do I think you need to know your state's history? Yes. Do I think you need to know how we got to the world we're in now? Yes, I do. I think, do I think you need to explore different cultures? Yes. So that takes history, which everybody kind of complains about. But it's teaching you, hey, there's other viewpoints. And if you want to go through it, hey, let's talk about, in the U.S., talk about the different cultures. Talk about people in the deep south versus the northeast. Talk about people in the Midwest versus the Northwest, or West Coast or the Southwest, because there's different traditions. Like there's different traditions within 100-mile radius of San Antonio that we all have. Like if you come to San Antonio in April, we have the Battle of Flowers parade, and that's a day all the schools take off. Like my daughter's gonna be in it this year again with her marching band, and they're gonna march it, and that's a cool thing. Like I get to see it, and I get to do something about it. Gracious in how we view education. I think when we look at education now, I think we find all the negative about it. I think we think public education is the hotbed of all these problems in education. And in essence, it's 1 to 2% of the students that you have in education. So it's going to show up more in public education because we take 80, 90% of a community and put them in public education. Like 25 years ago, charter schools weren't nearly as big of a thing. Like I didn't know about it while I was in school. We never heard about it when I was in school. I had 1 or 2 friends who came to public education from private schools. Besides that, I didn't know anything about private schools. But we've demonized public education in so many ways, and I don't get it. We hold this microscope and we find that 1%, and then we don't find the 90% that are doing all right at their job, that are making sure that the kids learn and trying their best. And then we see the 5% that are probably doing great. Like they're the exemplary teachers that we want our kids to learn from, but we don't understand or we don't see it in the vacuum of what it is. Is that's how society is too. We know who the greats are because they did greatness over such a long period of time versus it just being real quick. And in the past 25 years, what we've had to learn to teach kids is different. Like, we can't sit there and say, hey, I'm going to teach these kids this or I'm going to teach these kids that, and then be like, man, I don't know. Like, they don't, like, we're going to put them in this class of 30 kids and we're going to cut funding for teachers, but we're going to tell you can only have, like, the state of Texas actually tells you can only have like 25 kids in the classroom. If you have to have more, you have to fill out an exemption with the state. And then you can have these ridiculous numbers of kids in your classroom. And that doesn't benefit anybody. That's why when I talk to kids, I always tell kids, hey, you can go to like college when we were talking college. And if you go to a major university, those required classes are going to be in a room where you got 150 kids. And if that's not how you're going to learn, where you kind of have to learn on your own and just listen to the lecture, go to a community college. Go somewhere a little smaller first. Then jump up there. When you get to, oh, I know exactly what I want to do and I'm going to focus on those theories and that's what I want to learn. Like, I think we've looked at education as the end all be all in a lot of ways that, oh, well, the end all be all is that we need everybody to go get a higher degree. No, we don't. Here's why I would give my district props. There's both my daughters, by the time they graduate, will have a certificate in something where they can get better than a minimum wage job in a place that would be in a field that they want to do. I know kids who got into the automotive program at a school because that's what they want to do. Their kids, there's a campus that's just about construction. Their kids, that's their elective track. They get to do this, and they'll build a tiny house at the end of the year, and they're going to do their part in that tiny house. There's kids who are getting law enforcement stuff, riding around with cops. They're learning that trade or that job while they're in high school, and they get to do this stuff. Of course, there's the ROTC kids that get to see if they want to actually do the military thing. But we look at education, we look at the rural districts, at the harder districts, and even like the harder districts in this town. So if y'all don't know, San Antonio's makeup is really weird. There's like 12 different school districts within San Antonio. Don't ask me why, I don't know. To me, it's one of the dumbest things. I work in the biggest school district. I went to the biggest school district. We got 120 plus campuses, something like that, throughout the whole district. Like 80 elementary schools, 20 plus middle schools, and another like 13 regular high schools, and then some of them have magnet programs on it. Like 4 or 5 middle schools have magnet programs on it. But SISD, which is one of the oldest school districts in town, has had magnet school programs since me and my wife were in school, and we didn't have that in Northside. It just became a thing in the past decade or so. So we need to look at stuff and say, okay, let's take these districts that are doing it well and model it after them. I think Mike Rowe has a great idea when it comes to when you talk about trades in school. And when we talk about the trades, we need to be honest about it. And these are jobs that need to be done because we still gotta have to do infrastructure. So we're still gonna be building houses and buildings and remodeling stuff and fixing cars and having to fix stuff in houses and office buildings and all this stuff that we don't glorify. But in my position as a special education teacher, I tell my kids to go after that. Even the most menial of jobs, some of them don't have that strive for something that you need an education for. Maybe they want to run a business. Maybe they want to run a franchise type deal. Like, we can talk to them about it and give them opportunities to do so. But we need to stop looking at education's goal as go to the next educational stop. My job is not to get kids to pass a standardized test. It should never have been focused on a standardized test. My job is to help make productive people who are going to be productive in society in jobs that help society. And we do that through all sorts of ways, and it's not just through the academics. And don't fool yourself. If you think kids just come to school to learn academics, then you're a dumbass and you do not understand kids. Because most of the kids that come, they come for the stuff that's not academic. They come for the athletics, the fine arts programs, the computer programs, maybe the STEM program, the stuff that interests them that they'll have fun in. They don't necessarily come for the academics. Maybe they like one of their teachers and they'll come for that teacher. But that's a reason that they come, built on a relationship with that teacher. Because I know every school I've been at in my district, we talk about relationship building. It is something that needs to happen. This is kind of ironic. I was sitting in a class that taught me how to get kids to want to come into my class while I was in a setting that I wanted the exact opposite. I was an ISS teacher for 4 years. I was a certified teacher, but I was an IA doing ISS for 4 years. And my principals at the time sent me something called Planting Seeds. And that's a great course. It teaches you statistics. It teaches you ways to get kids in, how you can have fun with the desk, how you can have fun with this, how you need to keep kids engaged. And as I sat there, and this was like a 2-day training, and as I sat there, I remember thinking, this is great for when I get out of this position, but y'all wanted me in this position, and I want the opposite. I don't want these kids coming back to my room. This has to be a punishment, so I got to do the opposite of what you're saying. It's like currently I'm in a position where I want the kids to feel comfortable enough to come to my room, that if they're having a meltdown or an emotional thing, that they can come and know that they can chill. And it's a fine line, because I also have to make sure that they're not using my class just to skip. I got to make sure that, hey, you're regulated, man, go back to class. You're back to normal, we good, go. There's certain things that I have to do. And that's one of the things I don't think people think about education. Because it's changed a lot, and we talk about mental and social emotional stuff and all that, and that probably kind of started when I was a kid, but ramped up after Columbine, ramped up after all that happened. And I remember there's been days where I've just looked, and like I remember after Columbine, I think the next school year, we were on campus at the high school I was at, and we ended up sitting outside for like 2-3 hours because they had to go sweep the school and make sure there weren't any bombs because somebody threatened the school. And this is back before, like, people are threatening online. This was before MySpace. This was AM messenger time. So it's kind of at the forefront of a lot of stuff. But people would call school, oh, we're gonna blow up the school. And so we would be outside we were outside for like 2 or 3 hours. And this is before cell phones were the big computer in your pocket. So we just sitting there chilling. I think it was September, October, so it was hot as hell. And we just sat there for a while, like, what the hell's going on? We didn't even know. So, and we have to have all these conversations now since then about what do the kids do, what do we got to do, and all of this. So, I think we need to, if you want to talk about education, let's have the open conversation, please. Let's get state senators and state representatives who don't have their pocket lined by some educational foundation. Let's get the national senators, national House of Representatives. Let's have an actual honest conversation about it, of what you should expect from us and how we can actually make this happen and what funding you need to do this with. Because if you're going to sit there and bitch and add to my job, but you ain't going to add to the funding so we can do the job, then this is a fucked up situation. Because you're passing the buck to somebody, but we don't know who. Now, let's go on to some funner stuff. Actually, you know what? I'm on a thinking about this. I'm going to address something that I saw on my TikTok. Saw one of my videos that had absolutely nothing to do with anything. And just because I don't even remember what this guy's name was on TikTok, and I really don't give a shit. It's amazing when you as a coach are criticized by people who don't get what the job is at that level. I'm a middle school coach. My ultimate job has absolutely nothing to do with wins and losses. It is great to win, but at the end of the day, I'm not judged based on wins and losses. Maybe I am eventually, but I'm judged by the level above me by how we help grow these kids. And that sometimes is harder to get them out of a certain mentality than it's not. And I don't even think this really bugged me. It doesn't even shock me. It's funny to me that you're going to complain about me not being a coach, but my squad that I had didn't give up. And some of that's me coaching the mentality, and some of them have that mentality already. And I use them as leaders, and I do what I'm supposed to do. Because once we get to game day, that's my easiest day as a coach. That is exciting for me. That's fun for me. But all my preparation has been before we got to the gym, before we got to the point of before we got to that point, if we could put in a solid effort the whole game, then I've done my job. I don't get to sit here and go, oh, well, I ain't man, my team just sucks. No, I understand the level of talent that I have on my squad. And I do. And I love the boys that we picked. I love the effort that they gave. We lost probably our closest game of the season. Had some time. Had some dumb things happen in the end, but you know what? They gave it a hell of an effort the whole game. Couldn't make shots. Couldn't like that's just some nights you can't make shots. That's what happens in basketball. But as a coach, my job is to get them to do the best that they can. So if you don't like the way I coach, if you don't like the Ted Lasso approach to me coaching, don't come support us. My job is to get these young boys to start acting like young men and not overgrown boys. And there is a difference. That they hold themselves accountable and that they're willing to put in the work and the grind and not be so mad because something doesn't go right. Because there's shit that's not going to go right. There are moments in the game or in practice or in anything in life that aren't going to go right. And we have to learn to grind through that. That's the trick of it. It's like, how do we grind through that? How do we get through that part? Like, what are we doing? And that's the grind. So, again, if you don't like it, that's up to you. That's on you. That's more a reflection of you than me. Would I like some wins? Yes. Have I won before? Yes. Has it been a rough year? Yeah. But I love the kids' effort and I love what we do. So, and I know as you go up levels, now there's an expectation to win. But right now it's an expectation of me teaching these kids how to play and the expectation of me teaching them how to give effort and get to the next step. So that's my spiel on middle school coaching. Let's have some fun now. Let's talk about one of the weirdest things that my friends have done. And I don't even want to say all of my friends. They're like fantasy football people I know. I don't know why. You know what? I do know why. Because some of them are so addicted to fantasy football and drafting that it's not funny. And they had an itch because we played the whole season. We were out of the season a week. And they were like, oh, let's draft. Let's start this new dynasty up and let's draft. And man, we drafting already. It is such a pain in the butt right now. It is such a it's just a pain in the ass. But and we'll get past it being a pain in the butt. But like we have been doing a draft for like a week now. Because we didn't have a time limit on it. Because God knows we only got 9 months till they play another football game. So I don't get it. But this one was, my buddy had called this the Epic League, and I think he set everything for offensive points. Like there's no defense that you have to know on this. There's no special teams. There's no nothing. My buddy, for whatever, decided that only one side of the ball counts because it's the pretty side. And like, okay, I get it. That's what brings in money. That's what brings in fantasy football usually, is that pretty play. So we're literally like just drafting this league. I think we're on like round 20. We're gonna have a whole bunch of rookie drafts, which is one of the funniest things. Is I ended up trading my buddy ended up trading me his whole rookie class for some picks in this draft to start off with. This is the first couple of years I've done Dynasty, so I don't know all the nuances yet. But I'm going to have a shot to get like 8 picks in the rookie draft. To me, sounds fun. I'm probably not going to be good this year, but it'll be fine. and we'll see what happens. But yeah, so and then I'm gonna set up a league called the Chaos League, where basically I'm gonna have a super flex, like 4 flex positions, IDP on defense, a defense, and a kicker, and everything's gonna be scored. There's negatives all over the place. There's positives all over the place. There's some ridiculous bonus points here and there. These scores, in my mind, could be north of 250, 300 points real easy if you draft right. And it, to me, will point how much you actually know about football. Like, that's the kind, I just want one league like that where I'm not biting my tongue. I don't want to, like, I like playing with the defense. And one of the leagues that we have is defense, has heavy points on the defense. So, but yeah, so I think I came in like 4th on one league and 2nd on another. So I didn't do that bad this year. Came in crap on some others, which was fine, but whatever. And we'll see how next year goes. It's been fun. So, but I really want to see how this is going to look and how it's going to be set up. Just sometimes people are ridiculous when it comes to fantasy. And speaking of a little bit ridiculous, is that the playoff games have been going on today have been close, and it has been fun to watch, fun to listen to while I've been doing paperwork today. I was like half-heartedly paying attention to football this year as the season went on, and I know, especially after I realized my Cowboys weren't going to make the playoffs, so I kind of just like brushed it off. But it has been fun. Catching the end of the Jags-Bills game today, seeing how close Philly and San Francisco were. And those have just been fun games. And, of course, when you have a fantasy app like what we run with, it sends you messages, especially if you have teams that you like or players, and tells you, oh, this player did well, this player had a big play. That's always cool, too. So I do like keeping up with it like that. So that's my fantasy football talk. When we get closer to season, when we get closer to draft, I'll probably start listening to some draft shows because I'm going to need to be up on the rookies. And I'll probably start listening to some other fantasy stuff and see where my point is. This fantasy draft, I will tell you, I have been looking at like how long a player been in and picking a lot of young talent that hopefully is going to have a come up in the next year or two. Right now, a lot of long shots, but I'm hoping that this will be a good way to kind of have a good team for a long time in the fantasy football world. That's kind of what I did. I'll probably try and get some really good rookies, but like I said, I'm gonna listen and see what's going on. So it's just been one of those things where I haven't been like on watching football or paying attention. I still watched a lot of it. I just wasn't as invested as I've been in the past. I think this year was just way too much stuff for for me at times. So, but yeah, as far as wrestling goes, it's been a few weeks, so we can talk about Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre. Oh, I love that feud. I love the way that feud is gone. I love I even don't mind that Drew won on SmackDown in the 3 stages of hell. I think they did it right by bringing in Jacob, and then when Jacob messed up, I want to see how that goes. But man, I love the way that they got the emotion out of Cody Rhodes. I love the way that after John Cena left, that they were honoring him still with big stars saying their stuff and then kind of moving on. I love the stuff with Gunther. Oh, that has been fun to watch. Just kind of doing what you would expect. And I think to get him booed like that has been good for his character. I think him being the breaker of careers or the new version of the Legend Killer in his own way has been great in that he has killed off legends in his way legitimately in the best ways that you could see in taking them out and in him being such a great wrestler. Now, what I do want to see Gunther come across soon is Dragunov. I want to see that match. I saw it on. I never got to see it on NXT. I know Jim Cornette raved about it when they were in WWE UK or NXT UK. But I want to see that match. I want them to cross paths again. Even though I will say him and Carmelo Hayes had a hell of a match for that U.S. title a couple weeks ago. That was beautiful. That was fun to watch. I'd watched a lot of their stuff in NXT, and it lived up to it. It was, that'll be one in like 10 years where they can talk about that being a rivalry. Carmelo Hayes and Ilya Dragunov. As long as they both stay healthy and can go about another 10 years, it's going to be one of those ones that they can go back to that feud. And it's just been fun to watch. Seeing them bring up the NXT stars has been cool. Seeing them bring up Trick Williams and have him go against Ray Phoenix and have him talk in the ring with Randy Orton and kind of holding his own, which was really nice. Seeing them bring up Javon Evans and Jordan Grace and the people that they've been bringing up and kind of retooling their divisions, which is, I think, the really cool thing about NXT once they kind of learn to use it and learn, okay, these guys hit this crowd, so let's see how that works coming up and if we can do something with it. I think the reaction like Oba Femi got when he came and did his match versus Cody Rhodes is a great thing. I just love, because even the crowd was into his entrance, the whole woof when he comes out and all that. And I think that's going to be a fun one to see. Some of the stuff I've seen on NXT when I've watched it recently, I like how they got newcomers coming in and causing stuff, but they've kind of built their own single A to double A, or single A and like single A to double A to triple A to the big show, and getting these guys acclimated to the WWE style. And I think giving them, it's still a WWE audience, but giving them that range of a small audience and now putting them in a bigger crowd and seeing how the bigger crowd can react to them and how they can get the reaction from them. I think that's been cool. So just, I'm loving WWE right now. I want to see where the Cody, Daniel Bryan storyline goes. I want to see where CM Punk and the Vision storyline goes. Because I don't think that storyline's over. I think you can have a match with Punk and Logan Paul. I think he's up to that upper echelon. I think there's a lot of things you can do with that, so it's fun to see. The tag team stuff, Seeing the Usos back in the tag team division to give them some light is a really good thing. That New Day Usos match was great, like they always are. And even the SmackDown side, they've had really good matches. And having the Wyatt family versus the MFTs was really cool to watch. The women's division has been good, bumping up those tag team titles a little bit and making them mean something. I think you get a couple more, like a few more months of that, and they'll hold their own for a little while. But I think that you have to keep a big star in the women's division and then start like building. Like you have some one-off tag teams, but like the Kabuki Warriors, and then you built a tag team like Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, Lash Legend and Nia Jax, and I think that's where they're at, and I think that's cool. I think that's what they needed. To give some of these older vets time to work with younger people, and to give the women a little time. I will say, I think I've become more interested in the women's secondary titles in the Becky Lynch Maxine feud and Julia having the title. The women's main titles not fought as much. The storyline's starting to get there. Making Jade Cargill, that, as she says, that bitch is a really cool thing. Seeing Stephanie Vaquer as a champion, but unfortunately she looks like she's actually legitimately hurt. But having that storyline with Raquel coming out and just beating the hell out of her, I want to see where that goes. I want to see what sets up for Royal Rumble. I want to see how this sets up for Royal Rumble. I think that's going to be a fun show to watch. Now, let's be honest. NBA basketball is starting to get really exciting. It's cool to see that my Spurs are in second place in the West. I think they still need a little bit of seasoning on closing out games, but they're getting better. And just finding who their killers are. I think they have a couple. I think Victor and De'Aaron Fox are. I think just seeing some of the stuff. Like they won a close game in Boston last night, and tonight they lost to Minnesota before I started doing this. I think there's just something sometimes in basketball when people don't, or the runs just, you can't get out of them sometimes. Because it's a huge sport of momentum, so that's another thing. So, but I am loving my Spurs right now. Seeing some of the highlights, especially, man. It is fun to watch. It's probably the funnest squad since David Robinson was young, or Manu was really young, that the Spurs have had. But they got a lot of youth players who can do a lot of youthful things. So I think that fast break basketball that they're playing is really good for them right now. That's fun. Now, last thing I'm going to talk about is some stuff that I really want to see. I've loved the spots for the Avengers Doomsday commercials. They have been really cool, seeing the X-Men spot, seeing the Thor spot. Seeing the Captain America spot. That's all been cool. So I just want to see how they're going to incorporate this. It should be really good. It's kind of good to see the Avengers come back. And like this past summer, I tried to watch all those Marvel movies. I forget how far I got into it, but I didn't get through all of them. But what I saw, I loved. I was enjoying it. Because I saw some movies I hadn't seen before, hadn't sat through before. So it was fun for me. I do like comic book movies, but I'm really excited for some of these. Uh, you know what I'm actually gonna be excited to see is when they bring back another Spider Verse movie, because I actually sat down and watched those two like in the past week, and those are really cool movies, and I like the storyline. And I've always kind of been a Spider-Man fan, but I do love seeing all the different versions that they show and kind of having them interact like it's a new thing. I just think it's really cool. And then in some of the alternate realities, seeing what could have happened, where, and how, it was fun to watch. So can't wait. I want to see that third one when it comes out. I actually still need to see the third of the Now You See Me because I like that series for some reason. That's one I'm looking forward to. So, and I'll probably watch the newest Fantastic Four whenever I feel like streaming it. Uh, those are some of the stuff I'm waiting on. Should be fun. Again, Happy New Year. This is my first of the new year. It's episode 28. Please like, subscribe if you've gotten this far to the podcast. Don't forget, I got the Jackass Store 2 on Shopify. And hope y'all have a good year. Come on back, and I'll do this again next weekend. Peace.